One of the most universally celebrated foreign films of all time, Amelie is a warm, colorful blanket of a movie about enjoying little pleasures in life and being good to your own community and yourself. It's all about a frightfully shy woman named Amelie who works in a cafe and finds joy by secretly orchestrating the lives of those around her to help them find their true happiness. However, she finds herself in far less control of her own life when she eventually falls in love with a quirky young man who collects discarded photos. A mesmerizing romantic comedy which also doubles as the most sincere and beautiful love letter to Paris. Amelie is such a rich and charming film filled with stunning visuals, a gorgeous soundtrack, and a stack of delightfully offbeat performances that feels like a breath of fresh air and is one of the best feel-good films that anybody could ever watch. It's truly fantastic. Big Fish is a film that is so incredibly charming and has such an excellent sense of storytelling. Based off the 1998 novel by David Wallace, the film was such a great fit for Tim Burton's oddball sense of style, but in a way that nobody predicted. Throughout the runtime of Big Fish, Tim Burton masterfully blurs the line between fiction and reality as this odd fairy tale focuses on the story of Edward Bloom, an old man who reunites with his son as he lies on his deathbed. The story of the film is so affecting as Edward's son Will is trying to figure out how much of his father's fantastical tall tales of his life are actually true, while the audience sees these tales told in scattered vignettes, with Ewan McGregor playing the younger counterpart of Edward Bloom to perfection. Big Fish is a highly unique film that tells such an emotional and uplifting tale that has so many great lessons, superb acting, and like many of Tim Burton's projects, an outstanding art direction. Arguably the most iconic rom-com of all time, Breakfast at Tiffany's is a film that explores themes of love, freedom, and belonging, with Audrey Hepburn giving one of her greatest performances as the character Holly Golightly. Set in the busy world of New York City, Holly is a character who spends all her time with the social elite as she dreams of finding a wealthy husband who will provide for her, but when she comes across a handsome, aspiring writer named Paul, sparks fly between them as this leads to the character becoming torn between true love and her lifelong dream. This is such a comforting watch due to its charm and enduring appeal, as the film explores so many excellent themes such as the importance of human connection, the value of friendship, self-discovery, and most importantly, self-love. With the perfect balance of comedy, romance, and tragedy, Breakfast at Tiffany's is such a well-rounded movie that features Audrey Hepburn's impeccable style, charm, and wit that it's so impossible for any audience to resist this. Although the less said about Mickey Rooney's embarrassing racist portrayal of an Asian man, the better. One of the greatest Studio Ghibli movies of all time, the joy of Kiki's Delivery Service comes from how authentic its portrayal of growing up is. The film is so heartwarming and so relatable, teaching you a slew of valuable life lessons, from the importance of self-care, relying on your loved ones that can heal your heart, and that even when you fail in life sometimes, there's nothing to be ashamed about that because sometimes a setback can be a setup for better things for you in the future. This moving story is coupled with dependably colorful animation that brilliantly brings its alluring world to life and a complex but empowering view of adolescence that most animation movies sorely lack. Kiki's Delivery Service is such an exquisite movie to watch, serving as an early Hayao Miyazaki masterclass that tackles the trials of youth and independence with an imaginative fantasy twist to spare. Directed by Richard Curtis, Love Actually isn't just a Christmas classic, but also a rom-com classic that's packed with a star-studded cast of British actors whom all give such exceptional performances, portraying engaging characters throughout. But most importantly, it was a film that was needed at a time, released just 2 years after the world was still reeling from the September 11th attacks. When watching Love Actually, it kind of feels like the film is wrapping you in a warm hug, presenting such a touching portrayal of love that easily resonates with the audiences, while delving deep into a multitude of plot lines all rolled into one. It's like the perfect movie to turn on whenever you're in the mood of just sitting back, relaxing on your couch while enjoying a nice cup of hot chocolate. Over the past 2 decades since the film's release, Love Actually gained a massive cult following, becoming a staple film during Christmas time in both the UK and the US. Even though there have been a few holiday-themed films that have tried to capitalize the success on Love Actually, such as Valentine's Day and New Year's Eve, but neither of them have come close to capturing the magic of Love Actually, as it features perfectly timed humor, sharp writing, and the emotional depth that manages to tug at the audience's heartstrings, making it the ultimate comfort movie. When people think about iconic films that define the coming-of-age genre, Rob Reiner's Stand By Me always comes to mind, as it's a film that serves as a masterful depiction of boyhood friendships and intimate cruelties of growing up. Based off the 1982 novella The Body by Stephen King, the film follows 4 young boys who embark on a journey to search the dead body of a missing boy. It may seem very simple, but it's a lot more than that. It's a film that does such an amazing job of being a faithful adaptation to its source material while teaching life lessons to people about confronting fears, ourselves, and each other in a world that will try to hold you down. It's also a beautiful ode to friendship, with its phenomenal young cast capturing a world of authentic feeling in their love for each other, whether they're making jokes, pulling pranks, or even admitting devastating truths about their personal lives. Stand By Me is one of the best Stephen King adaptations and a touchstone for nostalgic coming-of-age narratives that allows the characters to do the talking and break your heart with every twist of their haunting, life-affirming journey. One of the most bleakest and darkest coming-of-age movies I've ever watched, 13 follows the story of a 7th grade student named Tracy who goes on a downward spiral as she begins experimenting with drug usage, sex, and crime after she befriends a popular girl at her school. As a result, this all leads to Tracy's relationship with her mother becoming very tumultuous. Coming from the director of Twilight, Catherine Hardwicke, and based off the real-life experiences of Nikki Reed, who also stars in the supporting role as Tracy's best friend Evie, 13 is such an important movie to the coming-of-age genre for those who not only find themselves on the path of self-destruction, but also the way how it targets the uncomfortable side of adolescence, particularly in girlhood, that often results in rebellion. Evan Rachel Wood and Nikki Reed masterfully portray the solemn violence of youth through drinking, sexual exploration, and self-harm. 13 is a movie that definitely won't be easy to watch. It definitely will give you a life lesson as a teenager of be careful with the choices you make in life, especially when it comes to the people you make friends with. The beauty of Boyhood is the fact that this is a film that exists. Filmed over 12 years to allow its cast to grow naturally with the story, the film served as the passion project of Richard Linklater as the story chronicles the everyday life of a boy named Mason Evans as we follow his journey from being a young boy to being an adult. Poignant in its simplicity and authentic character development, Boyhood particularly shines in its cast, especially Ethan Hawke and Patricia Arquette, who portray the parents of Mason, all of whom commit wholeheartedly to the director's gutsy vision. There's no film quite like it, as it's so poetic, as it feels like a cinematic documentary, as this film is like the equivalent to the experience of flipping through an old photo book of one's childhood in motion. As far as coming-of-age movies go, for me personally, it doesn't get any better than Boyhood. I highly recommend those who haven't seen it yet, because trust me, you won't be disappointed. In terms of rewatchability and sheer entertainment value, only a few of them come close to Cameron Crowe's Almost Famous. Set in the early 70s, the film follows 15-year-old William Miller, a young boy who aspires to become a journalist for Rolling Stone magazine, as he travels on a tour bus with an up-and-coming rock band called Stillwater, interviewing each member of the band and documenting the whole tumultuous journey. It's a movie that I highly relate to because I'm just like William, a young fan who idolizes people who surprisingly turn out to be just like him, young lost souls who are trying to find a place in this world and trying to figure out what they want to do for the rest of their lives. Furthermore, it features an incredible soundtrack and a stellar cast, including acclaimed actors such as Frances McDormand and the late great Philip Seymour Hoffman. Although a box office flop upon its release, Almost Famous has gone on to become a cult classic and is now recognized as one of the definitive coming-of-age movies of all time. It's an immersive film that feels like a love letter to the 70s decade, and once the film is done, you'll be singing Elton John's Tiny Dancer and hitting the replay button without missing a beat. I can guarantee it. The lasting impact that Rebel Without a Cause has had on pop culture for the past 70 years has been undeniable, as it features a career-defining performance from the late James Dean and has inspired countless actors from the likes of Robert De Niro, Johnny Depp, and Leonardo DiCaprio. This is a coming-of-age drama that's one of the go-to movies people think about when it comes to this genre, and indeed pretty much screamed 50s cinema. The plot of this classic is fairly straightforward, with James Dean portraying a delusioned teenager named Jim Stark who struggles to find his place in the world, who befriends two fellow outcasts, bonding over the shared sense of alienation and longing for acceptance. It's a film that may be bleak, but it's a powerful one, as it gives a definitive statement of what it means to chart your own course outside the expectations of society and family. As far as coming-of-age dramas about finding yourself and then being yourself go, Rebel Without a Cause is hard to fault, and that it still has an impact so many decades later speaks to its quality and timelessness. Based off the best-selling novel of the same name by Eric Segal, Love Story proved to be a multi-generational hit when it became the highest-grossing film of 1970 and received 7 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture. Set against the backdrop of Harvard University in the late 60s, the film excellently captures young love in its purest form, focusing on the complex relationship between a wealthy college student named Oliver and a working-class girl named Jenny. Despite the two characters coming from very different backgrounds, Oliver and Jenny instantly fall in love with each other, as the dynamic chemistry between Ally McRae and Ryan O'Neal was just astronomical, as they embodied the phrase opposites attract. Plus, the movie also features Tommy Lee Jones in his first major breakout role, portraying Oliver's roommate Hank. Featuring an incredible musical score from Francis Lay, Love Story has remained a pop culture phenomenon for over 5 decades, serving as a heart-wrenching tale of love and loss, and overall it's a must-see for any fan of sentimental romance. 2019 was such an incredible year for cinema. Like seriously, this year was just packed with so many incredible films back to back, from Parasite, The Lighthouse, Uncut Gems, Marriage Story, The Irishman, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But the one that stands out to me the most this year has to be Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Portrait of a Lady on Fire is a slow burn romance in the best possible way, serving as the perfect tale of queer romancing and yearning. Taking place in France at the end of the 18th century on a remote island, the film follows the story of 2 women. One is a painter who's hired to paint a wedding portrait of a bride-to-be, and the other is set to be given away in marriage by her parents. The problem is, the woman has no interest of wanting to be married and blatantly refuses to be a part of the portrait. However, as the film slowly progresses, the friendship between the 2 leading ladies eventually forms into an intense romantic bond. With the exceptional performances between the 2 leading actresses whose names I can't unfortunately pronounce, they carve out a romance so subtle, painful, and complex that each new addition to their relationship, with every word spoken or not spoken, feels so jarring and so monumental. Portrait of a Lady on Fire overall is one of those films that I would give a 10 out of 10, and although it's a film that will not be for everybody, but I feel like if you're somebody who's into slow burn romance stories that features impeccable acting, dazzling cinematography, and expertly crafted screenplay, it's definitely a film that will sweep you off your feet. And overall, yeah, it's an undeniable masterpiece of a romance flick. One of the most visually stunning films I've ever came across, Terrence Malick's Days of Heaven is a movie so beautiful yet complicated, as it's all about a love triangle centering around a young couple played by Richard Gere and Brooke Adams, who pretend to be siblings so that way they can eventually swindle the inheritance of a wealthy landowner who's slowly dying. On paper, it's a movie that seems like your typical period drama with an incredibly simple story, but it's a lot more than that because it's the presentation of what makes Days of Heaven so great, with its incredibly haunting score by Ennio Morricone, and for its breathtaking cinematography, all thanks to Nestor Alejandros, who was going blind during the film's production. There really are no other words to describe the greatness of Days of Heaven, other than to say that it makes for such an emotional, powerful, and unique viewing experience, and definitely a film that you need to tick off your bucket list. The Before trilogy, directed by Richard Linklater, is one of the most beloved series of films out there. While many movie trilogies are often thought of as expansions of action movie franchises, many of the best cohesive stories are told over time are the ones that are strictly about realistic relationship. This is one of the main reasons why Richard Linklater's Before trilogy stands out as not only as one of his best achievements, but also one of the greatest sagas in film history. The 3 films, Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, and Before Midnight, explore the development of a relationship between Jussie and Celine, whom both are exceptionally portrayed by Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy. Set in real time, 9 years apart between each installment, the trilogy follows the lives of Jussie and Celine in 3 intervals across an 18-year period in 1995, 2004, and 2013. While Richard Linklater attempted to capture the same sense of realism with his 2014 film Boyhood, the Before trilogy showed more narrative cohesion because of Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy's contributions to the development of the story. The Before trilogy, to me, is such a great achievement in filmmaking, following 2 brilliantly drawn characters as they deal with young love, career pitfalls, brief arguments, and the idea of everything in life being fated. Each film is intelligent, mature, thoughtful, raw, and masterfully filmed by accurately depicting a real-life long-term relationship. The masterpiece that gave birth to the cult classic phenomenon, Casablanca is widely considered to be the greatest romance movie of all time, and it's really not hard to see why. Despite the film being released in 1942, it has aged gracefully like a fine glass of red wine, standing out as a historic cinematic achievement that many film lovers still watch religiously to this day. Made and set during World War II, Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman give heartbreaking performances as Rick and Isla, a former couple torn apart by war neither wants a part in. Packed with a plethora of unforgettable lines that have become a part of cinematic legend and amazing performances that continue to engage audiences, Casablanca is a film that truly deserves the phrase timeless classic, as it hasn't lost its sense of appeal and is truly the greatest romantic film of all time. A sleek and stylish Western that was shockingly modern upon release in 1993, Tombstone has to be the huckleberry of every 90s Western fan. For me, it's the perfect film to show to anybody who aren't particularly into Westerns, as it has so many aspects going for it that makes it so thoroughly entertaining. Action-packed gunfights, tackling the themes of loyalty and brotherhood, and a stacked ensemble cast of A-listers such as Kurt Russell, Sam Elliott, the late Bill Paxton, Michael Biehn, Michael Rooker, and the recently departed Val Kilmer, who completely stole the show as Doc Holliday. For a film that's so tremendously well cast, triumphant, rousing, and imbued with gritty fun, Tombstone is a hallmark of Western entertainment and honors the spirit of the genre. One of the greatest aspects of the Western genre is the interesting and complex characters it creates, whether they are fictional or, in the case of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, modified versions of real-life people. Directed by George Roy Hill, this film has so many things going for it that makes it all the more appealing, from the entertainment value, the amazing script, but most importantly, the extraordinary chemistry between the late great Paul Newman and Robert Redford, with the two proper heavyweight screen titans making for one of the greatest pairings in cinematic history. Newman and Redford's chemistry is the defining quality of the film, chewing up the scenery and laying it all on the line together as a pair of suave, down-and-out renegade outlaws looking to start a new life in South America while being pursued by a local posse that is quite simple when you get down to it. With having a rewarding love triangle, excellent action sequences, an impeccable script, and an unforgettable ending, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid is a highlight of 60s American cinema, which revolutionized what a Western could be. Apart from John Ford and Clint Eastwood, only a few directors have held such a defining grasp over the genre of spaghetti westerns as Sergio Leone did. Coming just 2 years following the success of the Dollars trilogy, the Italian filmmaker would make another classic with Once Upon a Time in the West, a film that many people consider to be his magnum opus, and it's not really hard to see why at all. Epic in its scope and storytelling, Once Upon a Time is many things all at once. A masterclass in sustained tension and camera work, a melancholic destruction of the fading American West, an unflinching anti-capitalist street, a sublime showcase for its megawatt cast, and a perfectly paced revenge tale that rarely ever hits a dull moment throughout its runtime. Immortalized by Ennio Morricone's sublime musical score, Once Upon a Time in the West has come to be celebrated as one of the greatest Western movies of all time and one of the most influential accomplishments in the history of cinema. Now, there was no way in hell that I was gonna make a list of Western films and not include Clint Eastwood, because after all, he's undeniably the greatest Western movie star of all time, as he brought a combination of unadulterated machismo with an unflinching on-screen presence that no other actor besides John Wayne could match. After being catapulted to international superstardom for his role as the man with no name in Sergio Leone's Dollars trilogy, Eastwood would eventually spend 2/3 of his career starring in a spree of re-owned visionist westerns such as High Plains Drifter, The Outlaw Josie Wales, Pale Rider, and what I consider to be his masterpiece, Unforgiven. Garnering 4 Oscars at the 1993 Academy Awards, Unforgiven is not only recognized as one of the greatest films in the Western genre, but also Clint Eastwood's masterpiece as it showcases his brilliance as both an actor and a filmmaker. It's such a scathing revisionist Western that deconstructs the myth the genre propels with both brutality and brilliance. The Best Picture-winning tale follows Clint Eastwood as the once notorious outlaw William Money, as he teams up with his old friend Ned, played by Morgan Freeman, and a boastful young gunslinger to hunt down a bounty placed on a cowboy who slashed the face of a prostitute. Not to mention the fact that the movie features a show-stealing performance from the recently departed Gene Hackman as the film's menacing central antagonist, Sheriff Little Bill Daggett. What makes Unforgiven so great is the way how it strips away the myth and the romance of the Old West and instead revels in the harsh realities of life during that particular era, serving as both a gripping deconstruction of the Western genre and a masterful character study, with Clint Eastwood giving a career best best performance as Will Money. Unforgiven gives a commentary on the nature of violence itself, highlighting a protagonist full of regret and exploring the impact that killing has on a person. When David Lynch died earlier this year, the film world lost one of the most creative minds in cinema who had contributed multiple enigmatic mysteries through his work in both film and television, including the towering achievements that are Twin Peaks and Blue Velvet. However, when it comes to discussing Mulholland Drive, it's widely considered to be Lynch's greatest work, as it's a film that feels like an absolute fever dream. Following two women, one a struggling actress named Betty, and Rita, who is suffering from amnesia after surviving a huge car crash, the film charts a course through the romance between the two women and their struggles with their identity in a plot that has been subject to dozen interpretations that have offered up theories of dreamed or alternate realities as explanations. Whether thanks to its ambiguous characters, foreshadowing, or iconic fragment structure, Mulholland Drive's appeal, particularly in the mystery genre, is undeniable thanks to David Lynch's incredible direction. Not only is it a film that is incredibly entertaining, visually striking, but it also has such a captivating story which explores themes of obsession and trauma. Mulholland Drive is a movie that demands your engagement and is filled with nightmarish imagery that will continue to unsettle you for days after watching it. When it comes to mysteries in film, you don't get many more timeless questions than who is Kaiser Soze? Directed by Bryan Singer, The Usual Suspects is a neo-noir thriller that benefits from its unusual structure as much as the film is told in flashback as a low-life thief played by Kevin Spacey admits to his involvement in a heist to a group of police officers. Bryan Singer masterfully demonstrated his skill at handling multiple protagonists without any one character really taking the lead. He added depth and charisma to this film with his masterful storytelling and suspenseful direction, creating a mind-bending crime mystery thriller that showcases his talent of keeping you fully captivated throughout. The Usual Suspects is a perfect example of a film where nothing about the story is what it seems to be, ending off with an incredible plot twist that will leave you in awe. Widely regarded as one of, if not the best written movie of all time, Roman Polanski's Chinatown is perhaps the definitive neo-noir mystery film that is a must-see that essentially set the standard for the film genre. Featuring apex Jack Nicholson as the main protagonist, he portrays a private detective who finds himself wrapped up in a very complex conspiracy involving political corruption, affairs, and murder. It all unfolds in a way that can feel a bit overwhelming, but by design, everything masterfully comes together by the film's iconic ending. Jack Nicholson, Faye Dunaway, and John Huston all deliver unforgettable performances, but the true beauty of Chinatown lies in the story, which was expertly written by Robert Towne, as this earned him an Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay, and deservedly so. Chinatown is a wonderful nod to the classic mystery genre and features the necessities of an alluring noir that keeps audiences fully invested from start to finish. Now, if you were to ask movie buffs what is the best Alfred Hitchcock movie, it's very tough to answer because there's a reason why the iconic filmmaker was widely known as the master of suspense. The iconic filmmaker was celebrated for his groundbreaking use of film techniques to build tension and also to incorporate fear in his films to make you feel frightened. From Rope, Rear Window, North by Northwest, The Birds, and Psycho are all incredible films that Hitchcock directed. But if you were to ask me the one film that I would consider to be his unequivocal masterpiece, it would most definitely be Vertigo. Visually outstanding and emotionally intricate, Vertigo centers around a retired detective named Scotty, played by James Stewart, whom is hired by a friend of his to keep an eye on his wife Madeline and her very peculiar behavior. The problem is, during the investigation, Scotty finds himself falling in love with his wife, which is made even more challenging by his sudden bounce of vertigo while he's on the job. Aside from being the movie that was responsible for the infamous Vertigo effects cinematic shot, Vertigo is a brilliantly told narrative filled with twists and turns, serving as an early critique of toxic masculinity, which the film does while also being impeccably scored and flawlessly shot frame to frame.